Hello everybody, welcome to Debt Nation. I'm not sure if I'm live right now, I haven't done this before. How do I check if I'm on? It says I'm live. It says I'm live. Oh, I'm live. Sorry about that, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Sorry about that. Hello. Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to figure out how to make this thing work, but we're all good now. Alright, hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for everybody for coming on. Sorry about that, I'm staring into space, trying to figure out how the hell all this stuff works, but I'm getting there. Tim Wilms is your usual guy, he's usually here doing all the magic, doing all the tricks and all the good stuff that makes this whole this whole machine work. But you know, it's all good. I worked it out. We have an audience. Everything's going. Welcome. Thank you very much. Hope you had a great Monday. How was everybody's Monday? Was it good? I mean, was it fantastic? I had a good Monday. I've been in Sydney. This is a great country. When you fly, you know, over this country, you go from, you know, one city to another. You just appreciate it. You know, you realize why nationalists absolutely, you know, they walk up and down the street and they love this country and they do things for this country because it's just such a good country. Australia, I would say, arguably, personally, I think Australia is the best country in the world. I mean, America gives it a run for its money. I mean, I'll take that, but I reckon Australia is probably the best country in the world. What do we reckon? I don't know. I just love this country. It's just such a good country. You know, we've got great farms. You've got great people. The people are fantastic. I mean, you go around, everyone's really super friendly. Everyone's, you know, having a great time. So no, look, I understand the Patriots sort of bent that's going on here on the Unshackled. So today's show, what are we talking about? Debt Nation. We're talking about debt, and we're talking about the economy. We're talking about finance. We're talking about economics. We're talking about geopolitics. We're talking about China. Talk about the United States. A bit of tariff wars. A bit of Israel. A bit of Europe. It's all good fun. It's all happening. Where to start? It's all happening globally. The economics, the stock markets, they've been going up for years now. Okay, so the stock market has been just rising and rising and rising and rising. And why is that? Why does the stock market, why is the economy, the fundamentals of the economy in the world so damn weak? And yet we turn around and every day the Nasdaq's, boom, it's going up another one. Or we turn around and the Dow Jones Industrial, boom, it's going up again. How is all this happening? And it's happening because it's being fueled by 0% interest rates. It's being fueled by absolute rock bottom, disgusting debt. Okay? And on Debt Nation, we argue that we don't want to have debt in this world anymore. Debt is the fundamental evil at the center of the world that's taking us off the edge of the cliff. It's gonna eviscerate everything that we hold dear. Debt is what's fueling the next crisis. It's happening as we speak. Look at the gold markets, people. Look at gold. Okay, if you want to talk about the next crisis, I mean, we're right on the cusp of it. Australia, it's hitting all-time highs. The yen, it's hitting all-time highs. I mean, we're starting to look at a gold bull run in the gold market, and that indicates when gold is going good. That indicates that fiat currencies are not doing so well. They're printing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in QE. It's not working. It's not stimulating the economy. They're trying to cut again. Jeremy Powell over there in the Federal Reserve, over there in Washington, over there in in the United States. He's saying he was trying to raise rates. You remember that? We all remember that. He was like sitting there. He was like, "Oh, all right, let's try and get these rates up because we need some emergency funds when the next crisis rolls around and hits." And boom, what happens? Trump comes in and says, push those rates down. Push those rates down. So Trump in his own weird way is acting like Andrew Jackson. Remember Andrew Jackson? I killed the bank. That guy. Andrew Jackson. He was an absolute American patriot hero. We love him, and we love America. How they've killed the bank at least twice, at least 3 times. I mean, the Boston Tea Party Revolution, when America became independent, that was the first time. Then we had 2 other separate killings of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, by the way, if you don't know, which I know all these people know. They all know. They're all incredibly smart. Our audience is the best. Our audience is so smart. So I don't really have to explain this. But the Federal Reserve is a bunch of sort of greedy, gilded era way back 100 years ago that no one even remembers, of industrialists and bankers and Jews and weirdos. And they're all just super rich. And they all got together and like, let's collude and let's like rig the markets and let's just all make lots and lots of money and leave the poor people, leave the little people, the bottom 90%. Not a Marxist. I'm not a Marxist. But the bottom 90%. Just leave them out in the cold. Leave them, let them shiver and shake and spit on them as they walk past. I mean, these people are evil. These people are corrupt. These people are losers. And they've pushed rates down to 0. They just take money like this, taking money, and they're buying companies, and they're buying stocks, and they're buying bonds, even though the governments are now fighting back with negative bonds. But you know what? They want you to buy those bonds. Hey, think about this. Think about this. I know you're a smart audience. Think about this. You're going to put your money in a bond that's negative yielding. So you give them money, and then when they give you money back when it matures or over the period of time, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. What the hell is this all about? This doesn't happen. You're not supposed to lose money. When in bonds, it's supposed to work that you put your money in, you be a good boy, you sit around, you wait, you save, and as it matures, you get more money back. I mean, what's going on in this? What's going on in this crazy world? They're trying to rip you off even more by making you buy these dismal, disgusting bonds. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, back to the Fed. So it's elite, all these Rockefellers and Morgans and all these guys, and they're sitting around with 0% rates. Apartheid, you can't access these 0% rates. Because people say that. They go, well, if these big guys are accessing these 0% rates, then why can't I access the 0% rates? Why can't I get my hand on some of this free money, free cash, straight up free? I mean, borrow $10 billion, right? And you'll be fine. But no, you can't access it because you're not a bank. You can't access it because you're not in the boys club. So, because you're not in the boys club, you got to go to a bank, and you got to go to a bank where they have to make money, and then you're borrowing at what, 3 or 4%, something like that. I mean, these people are psycho. They're leaving you in the cold. They're leaving you in the cold. Oh, I've got a Port Film Co-op. He said thoughts on Bitcoin. So, with me, I have been a long advocate of Bitcoin. Absolutely a long advocate of Bitcoin. There's photos of me going back to 2011, going back to the conferences. I've got all the people on my Facebook. I know all these people. I know the fundamental designers and builders of Bitcoin. I was a bit nerdy back then. And yeah, so I'm big on Bitcoin. I'm big on distributed ledgers. I'm big on decentralized digital or cryptocurrencies. I mean, you can argue in the comments being like, it's a digital currency, or it's a cryptocurrency. But they kind of, the Fed calls it a digital currency because it's trying to get in with this Libra thing, which is just basically a new, what's this Facebook coin? It's just like this new little, I'm Facebook. Yeah, people will fall for the Libra scam. I mean, it's a bad coin. I can't say the word. It's a bad coin, right? It's not a good coin, but it's part of this new development in what Max Kaiser calls the casino gulag economy, right? It's the casino gulag economy. And what's the casino gulag economy? Well, that's where people just have to sit around on their mobile phones playing Farmville all day, every day of the week, in order to get Uber Eats, Uber Eats, by the way, is a disgusting company. It's wasted billions and billions of dollars, and it hasn't hardly invented anything. It's going to go bankrupt. You won't see Uber around forever. As soon as rates go up, Uber is gone because it's a company that's been built by people who is just throwing money at Silicon Valley, here, have my money, more money, just throwing money at around forever. I'm not sure how these other competitors are doing, all these what are they called? I'm not going to knock Uber. I think the decentralized pattern of it, and I am disgusted, but not surprised at the taxi industry. I mean, how disgusting is it? I mean, you got the taxi industry, they're coming in there and saying, oh, we've been dominating the market since the Stone Age. We're just going to sit here and say, hey, we need the government to bail us out because we have, entrenched interests. We're the taxi industry. Taxi industry needs to innovate. The taxi industry needs, as a company, if you look at its balance sheet, if you look at its history, it's a terrible company. It's one of these companies that's just been built off the back of all the cheap money and the cheap fraud and the fact that people are looking, and they're desperately looking for some sort of yield. Okay, they've got all this money here, they've got all this cash because to borrow it for, a small amount. I mean, we can't borrow it at 0%. We already established that because none of us are in the boys club. If you're in the boys club and you have like $1 gazillion, I mean, donate some of that this way, but no one here is in the boys club. Everybody here is in the bottom 90% at least, at minimum. I mean, probably less than that. But that's because we're all patriots, right? We're helping the country. We've got to do all the right things. But look, the Uber's okay. Uber's all right. I mean, hopefully they change their patterns and do it because I like the technology. I like the company. I just think they're a terrible company. Do you know what I mean? It's fundamentally. But anyway, yeah, so the people, we're heading for a casino gulag economy. What does that mean? That means Farmville. That means Libra. That means people will be walking around like zombies, even more so than they are. I mean, you look at people nowadays, and what are they doing? I'm on this app and this app and this app and this app, and I know it's all important. I mean, I use my phone a lot, but 90% of the time I use it for work, and so when I'm doing this, it's like it's work related. As soon as I can get off it, the digital experience, I don't want it. I don't want the digital experience. I want to have reality. I think reality is very important. I think getting out into reality is a great idea. I try and separate myself from my phone as often as possible. And I would encourage you all to do that as well. Go back to nature. Go back to the fundamentals, the hills and the paths and the rocks and the trees and the grass and the sunsets and all that, the real ones, not these digital ones, because depending on your age, whatever age you are, the younger generation, the guys who have been born, since 2000 or something, those guys are internet addicted. I mean, they're internet addicted. I mean, these guys are like wow, they know everything about the internet. They know, but they're glued to it. I mean, I see 2-year-olds now walking around with giant iPads going, playing the game and stuff, and it's like, and the parents just going along with it because, and I guess in a way, it's kind of the new television sort of experience, right? But it's kind of almost dumber, but it's not dumber. It's not like unconsensual brainwashing, right? Because like from the 50s when TV became sort of semi-mass adopted, well, it was for the rich people, but then over time it became cheaper and it got mass adopted, and then people bought these things into their houses, and by the 80s and 90s it was like, if I had two TVs, I'm the best person in the world, and if I have a huge one, I'm even better than you, and I'm gonna have like 10 TVs in my house, and I'm like winning the cultural war, right? So it's coming, and then you just put Fox News on every single one, or you put CNN on every single TV, and you're like, oh, look at me, I'm informed. Now, that is the new shift is to these iPad things, these iPads and these Samsung smartphones, and the kids nowadays, they're looking at these, and they have a whole experience out here, and they're missing it. This could be a detrimental sort of impact on our society. As they start to miss the reality. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that people are losing themselves in the digital world, and they don't have to experience, and they don't have to put up with some of the craziness that's going on in the real world. I mean, because it is crazy, right? I mean, we live in crazy, crazy times. I mean, we all just lived through. What did we all just live through? We just lived through almost a World War 4, 5, 6. I don't know. Where are we up to with the world wars? I mean, we had the first two, and then we had another one in the financial markets. Remember that one? People were asleep at the wheel at that one. And then suddenly in 2006, 2007, 2008, they were like, whoa, what's going on? The whole thing's collapsing. I never saw the house market bubbling up. Oh my God, now I've lost my house. I mean, these guys... that was World War III, I guess, because then everything changed. I mean, Australia is we just scooped out of that one. I mean, I think Australians just don't appreciate how we just managed to get out of that, slide out of that one. And so for that, I'm very appreciative. And part of that was because of our low population, high productivity, and high sales to a resurgent China that decided it wanted to buy a lot of our exports. And so for that I say, and I very rarely will ever compliment China on being anything good. China is a sick country. It's an evil country. We don't like China. Nobody likes China. Japan doesn't like China. Taiwan doesn't like China. South Korea hates China. I mean, Russia just barely puts up with China. I mean, with all the Belt and Road Initiative, with all the handshaking between Putin and Xi Jinping and all this sort of stuff, Russia's just going, oh, just leave us alone. Don't take Siberia. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. I mean, because that's all China wants to do. I mean, their long game is just going straight up into that wasteland and just using that, putting their people there. I mean, they've got a huge amount of people, and they want to get up there. I mean, wouldn't you? If you were born in China, if you were born in, I don't know, Manchuria or like Shanghai, and you just swallowed up by the imported people from all the countryside, and you're now you're being displaced by all these country folk or whatever. Wouldn't you want to send them back out into a Siberian wasteland? I mean, come on. So it makes sense, right? It makes total sense that Russia is not really allying with China like CNN wants to make it out. I mean, CNN will sit there and go, oh, Russia and China are colluding on the international world stage because they want to displace America. No, it's not really that at all. It's Russia is demographically gone. I mean, dude, their demographics are horrible, and I love Russia. Big fan of Putin. Big fan of Russia. Love everything those guys are doing. But demographically, I mean, they have a problem. They have a massive problem, and holding against Europe is hard enough, but then they've actually got to focus on China and North Korea and Japan on the southern end, and then I guess in another way they've got to also concentrate on Central Asia, Kazakhstan, and all these former Soviet Republic countries. I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job, and this is why these whiny little Democrat scumbags over there in Congress or whatever, they sit there going, Trump collusion, even though it was proved fake. That's fake news. That's stupid news. They did this for 3 years, getting Attorney Barr or whatever, and they're like, we're going to get Trump one day. We're going to get him. Oh, look, we're about to. Oh, no, not going to happen, boys. Look, I always said that even if Trump and Russia colluded, I mean, it's so bad to say it on air, but who cares? Who cares? It means they're not going to go to a nuclear war, okay, in that way. But he didn't collude. That's not what I mean. That's my stupid opinion, all right? A stupid opinion. Who cares, okay? But listen, it means they're not going to go to a nuclear war because, like, what was Hillary going to do? Every cyber attack, there's millions of cyber attacks a day, and they'll be like, there was a cyber attack from Moscow. Press the big red button. What the hell is she thinking? I mean, she lost the war. She lost the war. Yeah, she lost the war on becoming the president, but she lost because she scared people to death with this. I mean, if you guys, and I know some of you are high-tech people and you all do coding and computer programming and all that, and there's cybersecurity maps on the internet. You can go and check them out of real-time cyber strikes and stuff like that, where they're all hacking each other. Really interesting maps. I mean, these things are really, and there's like a million of them every second. And bang, bang, they're hitting banks. They're hitting deep state infrastructure. They're hitting, everything. They're hitting houses, and they're going back and forth across the world. And there's tons of them coming out of Africa because they're trying to hit banks, and they're trying to do this, and they're trying to. These things are incredible. I mean, and there's millions of them. And here Hillary Clinton's sitting there standing there. She's like, oh well, if I even see one little one from Russia ever, you're gone, boy. I'm gonna nuke the hell out of you, and you're gonna be a wasteland. And everyone was like, whoa, what? This woman is more crazy than Trump ever could be. So, I said, who cares? But that's kind of the truth. It's like, I don't really want to die in a nuclear winter. I mean, probably Australia would get hit by a nuclear weapon anytime soon for any sort of reason, but it would definitely get impacted by a nuclear winter. I mean, look at the amount of fish and the amount of devastation and ecological holocaust that was caused by the Fukushima disaster. I mean, that wrecked the Pacific Ocean. That took the Pacific Ocean to a new level of devastation. And look, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. I am a fan of nuclear technology. I've written about it in all sorts of papers. I've written about it in all sorts of academic papers as well, when I was at uni and stuff. But look, I'm a big fan of stable nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is a viable option. Germany has done very well with nuclear energy. I mean, they're one of the biggest nuclear energy exporters in the world. I mean, Germany's done very well. They're shutting them off now, but they've done very well. Why can't we? Why in Australia? I understand I'm way late on this debate. I had another show, but the bloody power price thing, all that stuff. I mean, it's just build the damn coal stations. I mean, I know I'm way late on the debate, so I'm not going to weigh in that heavy. Just angry about it, This is a bloody safe country-ish. We got problems, and we're going to go into those problems at a later date. But look, this is a bloody safe-ish country, and And we should have the best power in the world. That's just the simple fact of it. And all these greeny, lefty, Extinction Rebellion, whoever you are, all these groups, I don't know who these groups are. There's just too many of them. There's just overwhelming numbers of them. I can't keep track of them all. That's why I got Tim doing all the tracking of all those weirdos over there. But they have an impact, and they say, oh, you can't have cheap power prices. This is part of the fundamentals of the Australian economy. That's what we've always been competitive on, okay? Not just the minerals and all that everyone goes on about. The bloody power, being cheap, has always been a competitive a notion for Australia. So just get out of the road. Whoever you left people are, you anti-coal people, whatever, just get out of the road. Move out of the road. But as I said on Uncuckables thing with this Carmichael Adani mine thing, that's not good. I mean, we want that to be an Australian infrastructure project. We don't want it to be some Indian thing. Anyway, going back to the Fed and going back to financial markets and the title of whatever this show is here, the economic collapse is coming. It's starting to rumble. It's starting to. You can feel it in the markets. Trump is freaking out massively. Trump is absolutely massively freaking. Why is he freaking? Because the Fed is independent. And what does the Fed always say? The Fed always says, oh, we concentrate on keeping low unemployment, and we keep inflation at like 1.2% or whatever their inflation target is. And that's their whole two mandates. They just concentrate on these two mandates. So the two mandates, they sit there, they contemplate it, they say they do, but it's not true. It's all propaganda. They don't just sit there concentrating on the two mandates of low unemployment and bloody inflation. That's not what they're doing, people. And it's hilarious because then Mario Draghi came out and he was like, oh, we're gonna rejig the amount of money in the supply to impact inflation, and the euro dropped, and then Trump came out and with a massive tweet, and he was like, whoa, you can't do that, you're being uncompetitive to the United States, that's unfair, you've been doing it for years, all this sort of stuff. Got really, really angry with him, and it's kind of interesting because that is the propaganda, that is the lie. They target the exchange rate. They sit there. They target the exchange rate. So does the Fed in America. So does the Japanese Fed, and so does the Bundesbank. They all sit there targeting the exchange rate. I mean, they don't just sit there on their dual mandates, but they do target the exchange rate, and then they all deny it in public. When Trump comes out and he goes, "Oh, you can't do that." It's propaganda. If you believe Mario Draghi or Jeremy Powell, you guys believe these clowns? You believe these clowns? Well, then you obviously need to watch this show more, or go watch some Max Kaiser, or get some real news, or whatever. I don't know. This stuff is classic propaganda. Classic propaganda. Classic propaganda. The economy on the bottom, like if you're looking at all the metrics, I mean, you're looking at the amount of retailers that exist. It's shrinking. It's all being sucked up by Amazon. If you're looking at housing construction across all these places, the reason that the Fed, the RBA is dropping interest rates here in Australia, which is very concerning, but is because approvals for new businesses is down, everybody. So I think it was like something, I read the report, it was something like 2,800 approvals over the last annum. Going into the next annum, we're going to be down to like 1,800 approvals because construction is slowing. There's no more, the buildings are slowing. Okay, so they're sitting there and they're trying to stimulate the economy. They're trying to go, let's stimulate a little bit, and they're trying to drop that rate down to try and get those people back into the economy, trying to stimulate consumer spending and all that other stuff. But I don't know. Look, it's fraud. They don't have enough ammo. going into this collapse, because this collapse is going to be big. I mean, you're gonna see probably something like a 25-year depression. America is already in a depression. I mean, don't believe the phony stuff, because a depression is defined as below average growth. Okay, so if you define it as below average growth, then bam, America's been in a depression. It is in a depression, and it has been for a long time. Obama didn't fix anything. I mean, Bush shouldn't have done the Fannie Freddie, May Mac, that whole shenanigans of subsidizing houses and allowing everyone to roll everything up into collateralized debt obligations and doing all the funny money like that. That shouldn't have happened. Okay, we agree that. But then in comes Emperor Obama, and he says, I'll fix it, hope and change and all this sort of stuff. He didn't fix anything. He didn't throw even one. He threw some Pakistani guy or some nobody. Well, Bernie Madoff. He threw like Bernie Madoff because Bernie Madoff is like the big kid at school that makes like some weird Ponzi out of the lunch money, and he got caught when the whole thing fell over. I mean, it's not Jamie Dimon is still in there. You know, all these Larry Page, like all these guys, they're all still there making money. Everyone's happy. No one went to jail. Nobody went to jail. No one fixed anything. Then they just printed their way out of it. They thought, oh, how are we going to do this? All right, let's just churn up the printing. Let's just print out another trillion. And what did they do? They printed $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That's a lot of money. I mean, I can't even conceptualize that amount of money. I can't even conceptualize it. Anyway, so you printed up all this money, they bought up all the bonds, they pushed it into the stock market, the stocks were rising, the stocks have always been rising. Every time we talk about the economy, people don't talk about the numbers of the economy. What do? They turn around and they go, oh, look at the stock market. That is the real economy. And they're people, the stock market has eclipsed Main Street. Wall Street has eclipsed Main Street. It's eclipsed it. It's larger as a percentage. So there's more money going through Wall Street and being pumped around Wall Street than there is on Main Street. So then when people worry, they say, oh, you know, what's up with this whole immigration thing? Is it the debate about labor, or is it debate about votes? Well, the point is with the labor or the third argument is the economy, right? So there's three big things from Mexico, you know, Mexican and all these Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Honduras, all these Guatemala, and all these crazy countries down there that should just get a life instead of running around. But look, just go back to smoking drugs, Nicaragua. That's the one that everyone goes, oh, you know, oh, it's. Of course, they need to flip. They need to flip Texas blue, because Texas has a lot of, what are they called, primary those votes, those primary votes or whatever in the last stage of the presidential election, where they get all the delegates together and then they count up all those votes and all that sort of stuff. So Texas has a large one of those votes. I can't remember the exact term for those votes. It's primary delegates or whatever they're called. And it has a large number of those. And so the Democrats have always needed to flip Texas blue in order to basically win hand over fist every single time. So yes, immigration is part of a strategy to turn Texas blue. Yes, immigration is part of a strategy that has failed because America's been too busy fighting Iraq and not worrying about its own borders. Yes, that's kind of true. But the economic arguments are labor related. So they say, oh, well, these cheap immigrants come in and they pick cauliflower and they pick corn and they pick all this stuff, whatever they're picking, all these agricultural products, and they're picking it all at a lower price, and, you know, Americans won't do it. They won't do the work and all this sort of stuff. And so that is an argument. It doesn't really make much sense. I mean, it's good for farming sector over there in lower Texas or in the region of that area, yes, it could do some good, and yes, there would be lobbyists for that, and yes, they're race traders and all that. But look, it's not really the economic argument. It's the one that the alt-right and the new right and all these sorts of ones want to push, because they're trying to push the Republican Party back to a more conservative center level. The economic argument is the one that sort of gets left out. If this is the fiat argument, and what the idea is that every single person that crosses the border demands goods. They demand goods. Okay, they need to be housed and clothed, and they do work and labor. That's part of it, and they create activity. They create activity. You know, if they get locked up, and it creates activity. It creates economic activity. So this is the larger one. And they say, well, if all these people are coming in, then all that money, that cheap money, has somewhere else to go, and it will help Main Street a little bit by boosting retail sales and boosting construction and boosting all these things just by the simple fact of these people moving in. And that's the broader economic argument that all these other people miss. And that argument is really sort of accepted by the Austrian school, the laissez-faire people, because they don't really care about anything else than what, I guess economics, right? I mean, what else do they care about? Have you ever heard anyone from, all these Friedman conferences and all these ones talk about anything other than economics? I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. These are why these people, they sit there and they go, no one wins a trade war. It's like some sort of, why don't they get out on the street with a big sign going, no one wins a trade war? It's because it's not about, oh my God, these people. It's not about the consumers anymore, okay? The consumers, get rid of them. We don't care about them. It's a tax on American consumers. It's a tax on Chinese consumers. No one cares about them. It's about intellectual property theft. China, you're an intellectual property theft magnate, okay? China is just sitting there. They have buildings as big as these buildings back here, full of people who are just sitting there looking through blue papers and white papers and green papers and all these things, and they're just translating them into Mandarin, and they're sitting there and they just want all of the information, and then they process all the information, and then you have Nike, and then you have these bloody products, Nikkei, and the Nike can't do anything about it, and then they produce Nikkei, for half the cost, and they send it to the United States, and then the unwilling consumer, or they put it on the bloody internet commerce site, some e-commerce site, either for Americans or for other Asians, and it's a quarter of the price of a Nike, and it's called a Nikkei, and it has a pretty much identical tick, and Chinese people go, well, I want to look really good in social society, but I can't afford 200 USD, but you know what, I can afford 3 million RB, like renminbi, or like equivalent, I don't know, but not 3 million, but whatever the exchange is, so I can afford 500 renminbi or whatever, the $30. And so then they buy these for $30, and then they put them on their feet, and then in social society, these Chinese people walking around going, I have Nickeys on my feet, woohoo, and the laissez-faire people, these Austrian school people, they don't care about any of this. They say, well, that's just market competition. That's not market competition, because they're protected by their government in order to do that. So China is a massive intellectual thief. That's what they are. They're stealing products, they're stealing wealth, they're stealing technology, they're stealing everything. But what else are they? These guys are a wannabe superpower. China is a wannabe superpower. They're trying to advance into the South China Sea. They're trying to build up all these paracel islands and shoal islands and all these little islands out there, and they're trying to build these runways and aircraft strips, and they're building submarines, and they're building a couple of aircraft carriers, and they're building makeshift sort of copied and pasted planes, and these guys are a wannabe superpower, and they've got enemies on all their borders. I mean, you think about it. I mean, we talked about Russia and China before. Russia's sort of a reluctant ally. It's sort of like all right, I'll put up with you and I'll pretend to be your friend because really I'm too weak to do anything else. Because as the Soviet Union, I mean, it could have done something, but it didn't because it was ideologically aligned, right? It was ideologically aligned. They were both communists, so they were like, hey, communist brothers in arms, all this sort of Marxist, claptrap about, solidarity forever and all this sort of stuff. But China and Russia, for now, they have a common enemy. It's called the United States, so they go, all right, we'll put up with each other. China and North Korea. Now, this one is a hilarious one because it's changing rapidly. North Korea used to be there just little lapdog. We all remember that a few years ago because Obama didn't know what he was doing. And North Korea was just launching rockets everywhere, and every time anyone tried to do anything about it, China would go, hey, 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 don't you touch my North Korea. And everyone goes, whoa, okay, we won't touch North Korea. That's pretty scary, because Obama was a weak, cowardly person. And so North Korea just got away with everything. I mean, how does North Korea, North Korea's cyber capabilities, I'll go into that later. I'll leave that for another day. Cyber capabilities actually are better. But anyway, I'll go into that another day. But, China and North Korea, these guys used to be really good friends. And now that's sort of tapering off because Trump is looking at the real estate over there and he's saying, I like that real estate. And Kim Jong-un is writing Trump letters all the time. I mean, he's going back and forth. I mean, Trump said the other day, last week, he said, I received a warm letter from Kim Jong-un. So, that is a rapidly changing scenario, North Korea. I'm not sure whether they're playing 700 to 800 dimensional chess or whether Trump just smashed them. And I'm just really hoping for Trump to just smash them. Because then China loses a little tiny insignificant ally anyway. But that would be better if we could bring them over to our side. South Korea, they're scared of China. They hate China. They hate North Korea, but they're scared of China. China has been very mean to them in the past, and yeah, they're always scared of China. But they do hate the Mongolians more. But Mongolia is no longer ruled by Genghis Khan, so they got nothing to worry about. Japan, Japan is terrified because what was it like? It's not 100 years yet. I mean, in a couple of years it'll be 100 years. But those guys invaded, and they did a great job, and they took that whole place over. Remember that? It's called the beginning of World War II. About 10 or 10-ish years before World War II kind of took off in Europe. I mean, those guys were doing great work over there in Asia, doing all sorts of conquering and stuff, and they just laid waste to China. They just laid waste to them. And now with their Article 58 or 57 or 56 or whatever the bloody article is, 59 or something, they've got the peace accord that's been imposed on them in the Constitution, and now they're like scared because they can't rearm. They have the self-defense force of everything. They have the Japanese Self-Defense Force Maritime Division and the Japanese Self-Defense Force Army Division and the Japanese Self-Defense Force, Air Force. And so Japan is unarmed. I mean, demographically, it's also losing population. It's going about down to 10-something million people, but technologically what they're doing is they're just replacing themselves with robots. I mean, that's the Japanese way. If you can't be a human and if you can't do it yourself, build a robot that can do it. So Japan's rapidly replacing themselves with robots, and we'll have to see how that goes because China is not. That's the thing. China has overgrossed, it's over-engorged on labor, on cheap people. Remember, there's a supply and demand mechanism in everything. When the supply of something is high, the demand is low, and that makes it cheap. So there's a high supply of people in China, so that means the demand of people is very low. So human walls of anything, especially in warfare. They don't really mean it much in China. Taiwan. The old, what they do, they rowed the boat. Remember that? Chiang Kai-shek and all that. They rowed the boat over there. They think they're the real government. I would posit just for fun that they are the real government, even though the CCP thinks that they're the real government. I mean, this is the thing. Who's the real government in China? Is it Taiwan? Or is it Beijing, the CCP, the communists? Because remember, the communists overthrew the Republicans. This was an illegal rising up of the people. They illegally rose up and they threw out the Republicans, and they all rowed their boat over to Taiwan, and they've been sitting in stasis ever since. And they're very liberal now, and they're very indebted to the United States. And yeah, they're a little bit of a vassal state to the United States. But they're sort of coming back. I mean, China's trying everything. They're swamping them with people. They're trying to outbreed them. They're trying to outbreed mainland Taiwanese people because Taiwan has those good liberal values that make us all stronger. Golden Shekels knows all about that. As a person, not as a antidote for anything. But Taiwan is a very interesting. Philippines. Okay, Philippines. Philippines is interesting because under Obama they hated Obama. Remember that? We were getting all the oh my God, I hate Obama. He's not doing anything. He's weak and all that sort of stuff. And Trump's come in and he's sort of fixed that now. So the Philippines, Duterte, he's pretty cool. I mean, he was fighting Islam in his southern states. He defeated them in that war. He got rid of them, and then he almost declared war on Canada. I know. I wrote about that. That was pretty funny. There was a bunch of garbage or trash or however you want me to say it, piles of stuff that isn't supposed to be in the environment, and it was shipping containers full of it, all from Canada. And in 2014, Canada said, "Oh, yeah, we'll take it back at some point," and they never did. And then Duterte comes in and he says, "We'll declare war on you, Justin Trudeau, if you don't take the rubbish back." And what happened? Justin Trudeau, as he does, he bent over and he goes, "Oh, I'm so scared of tiny little Philippines," and he worked out a deal ASAP, and that rubbish got out of there. I mean, Justin Trudeau is an absolute joke. I think he's perfect though, for the time, because he looks so weak to Trump. Trump just plays him like a fiddle. If you go back a week from today, Justin was just in Washington. He was just in talking to Trump, and if you look at how he sat compared to Trump, Trump sits there like a big. He sits there like a big, alpha male, right? He sits there like a big tough guy, right? Because he is a tough guy. I mean, that's just what's going on. But Trump sat there like that, and Justin Trudeau just sits there. He sits there like with his legs, sort of like in this little girly position, and he's shaking, and he's sitting there like, and it's hilarious. If you get a chance to watch it, go and watch the Trump Trudeau sort of meeting. It's incredibly funny. You'll get a laugh, and that's what I mean. I kind of enjoy, because there's a lot of tough men rising up, especially Hungarian, great Hungarian people, for example, or Polish people. But Canada just looks so weak. It's quite funny. But I agree with all you out there who are probably yelling at me saying, "Oh, you can't say that because he's ruining the country." And yes, he is ruining the country, and he's doing a disastrous job. So we will condemn him from Australia, and we will say, "Hey, get that weirdo out of there. Get that guy out of there. We don't want that guy in there anymore. We want someone strong who can take Canada back to its roots," and all that sort of stuff. All right, cool. So Indonesia. What's Indonesia all about? Indonesia is a crazy country. Indonesia is just full of islands. That's I went there one time. It's just full of islands. It's islands everywhere. But really, they have more problems controlling their own territory than anything else. You know, all this sort of talk about Indonesia invading Malaysia or invading the Philippines or invading Papua New Guinea or anything. They have a really a hard time balancing against against themselves. I mean, all their islands keep them really occupied, so I don't know. I don't think Indonesia's a threat to Malaysia or anyone, because Malaysia doesn't want it anyway, because Malaysia's kind of split. You know how that works? It's kind of two islands, and it's like one's on a peninsula or something, and the other half is on the island or something. And Malaysia is worried about China. I mean, Malaysia's sitting there worried about China. It doesn't want to be worried about Indonesia. So you've got the Strait of Malacca down there somewhere or something, and Malaysia is worried about China. Indonesia, it's more worried about China than it is of anyone else. Thailand, that's another one. That's a strong. Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, that's another one. All those countries are worried about China. Vietnam especially. Vietnam's been in multiple wars with China, and those guys worry about China a lot. If you look at all their national security stuff, they're not talking about America doing a 2.0 Vietnam War. They're talking about China coming down and never leaving. So yeah, Burma's. We're going around. I don't know why we're going around China, but we're going around all the neighbors, the friendly neighbors of China, because China's just a big country. I mean, it's a huge country, and it's got a lot of people, and it's got a big population, and we want to keep those people up there. We want to keep them away from us, because we love Australia, and we would like to keep Australia clean, white, and bright, and happy. And not influenced by all these other shenanigans going on in these other places. So Burma is just a little closed off. Used to be communist, I think, right? Was it communist? Someone correct me in the comments. Communist or something country. It's started to democratize now a little bit. It's a buffer state that's been created by Thailand and India, I think. It was because they needed it. Bhutan is the same thing. It's a buffer state created between China and India. Bangladesh is not a buffer state. They used to be part of Pakistan. Do you remember that? We used to have the Pakistan. It used to be two things, and then it was one thing after the revolution because they couldn't hang on to it. Because the good British, when they used to control that region, they divided the whole thing up into religious lines of separation, and that led to the Kashmir crisis in India, which we saw a couple of planes get shot down and a bunch of hostages, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there for a while. And I would assume, I mean, they've both got a lot of nukes, and that's the reason that there's a standoff, and that's why we don't get any action going on. But I'm fairly confident India would win. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Pakistan-India war, I think India would come out on top. I mean, Pakistan's a very hard region to invade, but so is India. Pakistan has 200-ish million people, somewhere about there. Correct me again if I'm wrong. But India has 1.2. If you eliminate nukes, India's an easy win. I think that's pretty easy to say. Pakistan has a lot more sort of experience with war. I mean, they just have to go and get some Al-Qaeda people or whatever and just be like, hey, we're going back to the caves, boys. We're going back to the caves. Like, we all know we've all been here before. But anyway, the Tibet is not really a country anymore, unfortunately. Those guys have been ethnically wiped out. And I think that's why the Dalai Lama has been kicked off YouTube, or at least some of his stuff has been kicked off YouTube. Did you guys know that? I've read that in this deplatforming, these deplatforming wars or whatever, the Dalai Lama has been kicked off YouTube. I'm not sure because of what he said about Europeans keeping their own identity. because he doesn't want to see Europe turned into a new Tibet. So Larry Page, big thumbs up to you for at least getting rid of some of the good work of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because you're a scumbag, Larry Page. You're a scumbag. He's a scumbag. I mean, this is censorship, and I mean, he's a religious figure akin to the Pope. I mean, you're going to censor the Pope, Larry Page? What are you going to do, Larry Page? Are you going to censor the Pope as well? You're going to sit there saying, hey, you know what? This Vatican guy, this guy over there in Rome, who's the head of the Catholic Church, something billion-something people. You know what? I don't know what that guy's saying about all this peace and love and stuff. I'm going to kick him off my platform. I mean, come on, dude. Come on, dude. What is this? His Holiness, the Dalai Lama of the former place called Tibet, a very strong and independent kingdom full of beautiful people and Buddhists and monks and beautiful temples and all that sort of cool stuff that we all like to keep and we would have liked to seen as tourists, has all been transformed into a self-immolation flame war of ethnic genocide. Yeah, thanks, China. And thanks, Larry Page. Thanks, Larry Page. And probably going to kick me off too now because I said that against the grand overlord, master and king of all, Larry Page. Anyway, so we're going around for some reason. Afghanistan doesn't border China. Turkmenistan does, and Kazakhstan does, Mongolia does. These are fairly insignificant countries, and it's part of the reason that they want the Belt and Road Initiative to influence. The Belt and Road Initiative is complex, to say the least. I mean, if you look at transfer of goods and services, it's never a good idea to transport for goods and services over road, because the cost of transferring goods and services over a road is horrible. Air freight is usually the highest cost. Road transport is usually the next highest cost, and shipping is super cheap. You build a ship once, you fuel it up, you put tons and tons of cargo on that thing, and you send it off. All right? That's how it works. Massively cheap to do that. This Belt and Road thing, these guys want to build trucks and highways and all sorts of stuff through everyone's territory all the way into Europe. I mean, what is this? No, it's not what it seems. They don't really care about shipping goods and services via land freight. It's a military exercise. They're building military infrastructure, because what they'll do is every time they get to a country that they don't like or whatever, they'll just put troops in there and they'll say, hey, we're building roads. And they'll take the country over slowly. It's part of this debt trap diplomacy scam that the Chinese are doing, with the Sri Lanka and the port and a whole bunch of others. Remember all that sort of stuff? I mean, we are idiots if we think we should get involved with this project because we want money from it. I read somewhere, I don't know what this whole thing is, I don't know whether it's confirmed or whatever, but Daniel Andrews in Melbourne wants something to do with this Belt and Road, and that's atrocious. I mean, that's absolutely atrocious. I mean, this guy is nuts. Anyway, what are you going to do with the Belt and Road way out here in Melbourne? It doesn't make any sense. Or if you're going by my awesome financial background, City of London, who likes the background? Does anyone like the background? You want me to change the background? I like the background. I feel like I'm in the City of London with all the scumbaggery of the world who are slowly getting kicked out because Boris Johnson's going to come in and he's going to get Brexit moving, and he's going to kick all these fat cats out of the way, and we're going to start rebuilding the British Empire from scratch. It's going to be a long road. It'll take a couple of 100 years, but we'll be all right. We'll get there in the end. We always do. We'll use the United States. All right, so back to economics. Back to finance. Back to economics. Because what people don't understand about finance and economics and the whole sort of mechanism of the new world order of finance and economics is that it's all going digital. They are pushing for currency manipulation in the fact that they don't want currency, this sort of physical cash. I'm just trying to find my wallet for you. Hey, hang on everybody 1 second. Stay with me here on Debt Nation. All right, we're back on Debt Nation. See, look, this is what they want to get rid of, people. Thanks for staying with me. If you didn't stay with me, oh well, that's all right. But look, this is what they want to get rid of, people. This is currency, okay? So this is, I don't know, Thai $5, and this is another $20 Thai, and this is a Euro $5 note, and this is a 10 Australian, and this is there's a whole bunch of different currencies here. And the reason I carry these currencies with me in physical is because they're interesting. It's because currency itself, money itself, is a very interesting, fascinating concept, especially the euro, because the euro, it's got the European flag on it. But what is the euro really? See up there, the little euro propaganda thing, and look how small it is. Look how small it is. Look at this. This is a $1 American. Well, this is a $1 American with all your Illuminati people out there. You know, all the Freemasonry and all that sort of stuff, all the symbology. But look how small this is compared to the $1 American. I mean, this thing is abysmal, and it's something that you know all the people who get it. They always complain about how tiny this thing is and insignificant it looks, because that's what the European is. The European Union is this note. It's this $5 note. It's this insignificant, little tiny nothingness. It's the same as, what is this other one? It's the same size as the Chinese yuan. So Europe thinks it's the same size. What's that? That's a $1 Chinese yuan. This is a $5 note. This is a 5 euro, 1 yuan, and they're the same size. So that's what the European Union thinks of itself. If you want to know what a country or a collection of countries or a propaganda, which is only supposed to be an economic treaty, Lisbon Treaty or whatever, this is what it thinks of itself. It's stupid. I mean, these people, the European, the Mario Draghis and these, all these people in the European Commission and the European Parliament and all this sort of stuff, they think of themselves as the same as a 1 yuan. I mean, that's what they psychologically think of themselves as. And these people hate Western liberalism. They hate Western freedom. They hate freedom of speech, and it's all represented in their bloody money. But anyway, they want this here. It's called cash. Okay, I can touch it. I can feel it. I can do stuff with it. I can throw it around. If I could give it to you, I could give it to you. Untaxed. Okay, I can transfer it untaxed. What do they want with all this stuff? They want to get rid of it. That's what they want to do. They want to put everything on their own stupid New World Order, blockchain, digital currency, bloody nothingness. Libra crap. No, the people want to keep the cash, okay? We want the cash. What we want is this, especially. This is the $1 American. We want that to be tethered to the to gold. And we want it to be tethered to gold and silver on a gold-silver standard, right? We don't want this no more of this Nixon money printing, funny-duddy, New World Order, sort of inflate forever and, get stuff for free. What? Because why is that so dramatically important? Why is a cashless society so important to these elite bankers and all these people? Because they will track you and they'll know everything about you. They'll understand every one of your economic habits. You will have no freedom left. You'll have no way of conducting transactions unknown by the state or any other state or the United Nations or the Asia Development Bank or the International Criminal Court or the Bank of International Settlements. They'll have no idea. Okay, they'll have every idea. They'll be able to track everybody and every single thing around the world. Okay, the people demand that we keep the currency. We don't want this anymore. We want to keep our currency. We don't want your stupid New World Order Libra coin thing. Okay, blockchain off, decentralized blockchain on the like Ethereum blockchain or Bitcoin. Okay, I can live with that. Okay, because it's decentralized. But we don't want the Libra. We don't want your stupid centralized digital currency that you can track everything I can do. I mean, I understand that there's only about 3% of physical cash in the economy now, but they keep inflating so much money and pushing the funny money into accounts that none of us can see, that then this keeps growing. 10 years ago it was like 10% was physical currency, and then it was 5%, and now it's 3%, 2%. I mean, the Council on Foreign Relations knows all this stuff. I mean, that's where I'm getting it from. I mean, they're talking about this. I mean, the CFR is talking about this stuff, and they're pushing for it because they think they can get a good deal from it. And it's not about improving the efficiency of money transfer or anything. It's about tracking everything, knowing everything, doing everything that is in their power to increase their power. It's like this bloody... You guys ever heard of this social credit system in China? You know, this thing where everybody's getting tracked, and if you're a good boy, you can use the train. If you're a bad girl, you can get locked up or whatever, or you get access to planes and flights if you're a good boy. Or if you're a bad boy, you get disprivileged and stuff. And if you buy alcohol, even though it could have been for a celebration or who knows what or God knows what, you lose social credit, and you have to end up being a robot, self-serving, Maoist, extremist, Xi Jinping loving tattoo artist or something, to pass with this social credit system. Well, this whole funny money duddy thing that they want to do here in the West, where they want to take away our cash, which we will revolt against to the end of time, is the same. It's the same, because they'll track everything, and they'll say, all right, well, this is how we manipulate the markets, this is how we manipulate the prices and everything else in signals, and then they'll watch the herd go that way, and you'll have your behavior moved, your behavior manipulated. It's the same with the carbon tax. That's the whole thing about the carbon tax, is because most of the universe is carbon, and if you can tax carbon, then you're done. You can control and manipulate human behavior. It's not a new trick. I mean, it's not a new trick. Since the agricultural revolution, I'm explaining this, but I know in the audience here, they already know all this stuff. They're like, Steele, shut up. We know all this stuff. We're not stupid, right? And I know you're not stupid, but there's people who are stupid who've never heard this stuff before, and I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to the great patriot, TU audience and all this sort of stuff, because those guys, this is all boring. They already all know this sort of stuff, especially if you know anything about the Z word, or if you know anything about, the Z word. I'll just leave it at that. It could mean anything. I could be going about the Z-Zilla, right? The Z-Zilla, Godzilla. I could be talking about that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Z word, and you guys know what the Z word is. So, look, the carbon tax is the same sort of thing. It's a tax on almost everything, and that's why the world revolted against it. That's why they tried to push it through here in Australia, and Julia Gillard lost her seat, essentially, her prime ministership. She did get in a little exchange. Remember that? She got in a little exchange with former Prime Minister Tony Abbott now, and she had a little misandry speech or whatever it was, misogyny. She was being misandrist, but little misogyny speech. But that lady, fundamentally tried to push through a carbon tax because they were trying to do what they could replicate abroad. Okay, and the Australian people saw straight through it and they said, ha ha ha, we see you, we're not taking that. We're not doing it, we're not falling for your tricks. Yes, mining should be taxed, yes, taxes are okay, okay? No one here is a Marxist. If you're a Marxist, get off the channel. I don't want you. You're just going to report me anyway. Get off here if you're a Marxist. Keynesians, I get you. I kind of understand Keynesians. Alright, if you're a Keynesian economist and you're down here in the comments and you're a Keynesian person and you like Maynard Keynes and all that, I think I get where you're coming from. He was a very strong fellow and he did very well at the sort of meetings where he was trying to push for British imperialism over American imperialism and all that. I have a big soft spot for Keynes, but Keynes' theory, which has been misread and misinterpreted, which goes back to Adam Smith, not Karl Menger, goes back to Adam Smith. That theory is what's going to get us in massive amounts of trouble with all this bloody money printing and low interest rates and all this hooliganism that's going on in the financial markets at the moment, right? So, moving on, we got the Chicago people. I like the Chicago. I'm probably Chicago. I don't know, like, I'm all for limited government. I think people can be responsible. I'm not for laissez-faire. And the reason I was very kind of laissez-faire when I was younger, but I've kind of moved over to the Chicago school because I don't think human action is totally rational. And also I'm too much of a geopolitical strategist. I'm too much into the geopolitics and the government and all that sort of stuff. And I actually do like having our government to outsource my security problems and other things to that government. Now, I'll talk about that another day. Someone reminded me to talk about the privatization versus nationalization of the health scheme and why I think and what my thoughts on that are. I'm not going to say because I want to talk about everything at once so that we have stuff to talk about in the future, especially on a slow news day if there's no World War III between Iran and the United States, which would be very interesting because the United States would probably come out on top. Probably. Iran's a very clever country. The Persians are very clever. They've been around forever. They've been around and around the Robbie bush. They haven't attacked anyone in 300 years, so they've been sitting there consolidating, learning. They hate the United States. They know everything about the United States. But as global firepower goes, the United States it's a bit bigger. It's a bit bigger in the playground, even though Iran is literally on the other side of the planet. An Iran attack is not in the United States' favor explicitly. Okay, it's not in the United States' favor explicitly. It is for allies in the region, namely the great state of Israel, right? The great state of Israel, led by, I think he's the 26th most powerful man in the world, Benjamin Netanyahu, which is total fraud, because I think I read it on Forbes or something. He's the 26th most powerful man in the world. That's baloney. He's probably the 8th or something like that. I think that's a load of baloney that he'd be the 24th. I think he's somewhere in between Bill Gates and Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, which is the Saudi Arabian king, I guess. The guy who killed Khashoggi, Mr. Khashoggi, who was going on about Arab nationalism, and he didn't like it. So, no. So, I would definitely put him up closer to Bill Gates. I don't think he belongs way down there on the list. I think he's trying to get out of it by being way down there on the list. I think the list of the most powerful people actually has Xi Jinping at number 1, and Putin at number 2, and Donald Trump as number 3. What do we think about that? I'm not sure. I would say Donald Trump is the most powerful person on the planet. I don't think that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are, simply because Donald Trump's got all the chips. China and Russia I think Forbes is thinking that they're really working together. And if they're really working together and they're not doing the strategy that we laid out here earlier in the show, which you're entitled to disagree with if you think Russia and China are going to get on beautifully forever and ever and ever, that's fine by me. But I would probably put Donald Trump at number 1 and not at number 3. Simply because he's got more firepower, more allies, more stronger, much stronger diplomatic, soft power presence. They're hoarding all the best technology. They've got all the best tech, which is being slowly leaked to Israel, by the way. But we'll talk about that later. He has a country that is bordered by 2 of these huge intercontinental oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, which means that who's going to go up there and get him? I mean, what's going on? So I think Donald Trump, financially, they have the US dollar, which is still the reserve currency, the best stock market, everything like that. They can play these other 2 countries like a fiddle. I don't know why Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. I know Xi Jinping is one of the most powerful people in terms of he controls a huge population, but then where is Modi? Okay, then where is Modi? Well, Modi's number 9 on that list. So what's going on with that? Well, if it's just done on population, which it's not, obviously. So these people think that Xi Jinping is number 1, and Vladimir Putin is number 2, and Donald Trump is number 3. Vladimir Putin definitely belongs in the top 3. I will argue that, but Vladimir Putin is probably maybe-ish the richest person in the world. There's a lot of conjecture about where all the money after the Soviet Empire went. I mean, where did all the money go? And it seems like Putin was very clever and sort of got that. He sort of scooped it all up from all the oligarchs who were fleeing and all that sort of fun stuff. So, is Putin the richest man in the world? It's a conspiracy theory. It's not confirmed or denied. Obviously, he's very rich. I mean, if you type in Putin's houses, right? If you type in houses of Putin his houses are absolutely massive. I mean, he doesn't live in them because he lives in state-funded housing in the Kremlin and wherever he's traveling and all that sort of stuff. So he doesn't even live in these things. They're just assets to him, assets which basically hold money, and they will gain money. They're not an income-producing asset, which means that they're not subject to massive taxes at the moment. Unlike these people in Italy, who are getting screwed over by these Italian banks that have bought all these bonds, and now they're you know what do we think about the migrant crisis? Because some people say that the European Union did the migrant crisis along with the United States in order to have a release valve of anger when the finances finally started to crack and divulge. Because right now, if you look at the Italian news, the Italian government is going down there and it's taking people's houses. Why? Because it's put massive taxes on these houses and on these farms and on these assets and on all this infrastructure. And these assets, these houses, these old farms, these things that people have owned for generations, they don't produce money. They don't produce any money. And if they do, they've put the tax above what they produce. So if they're on, what's that huge website that everybody goes and lives in each other's houses? You know that one, what I'm talking about. I've used it a few times, just can't remember the name of it. Or if you grow some wine, what the government has done in Italy is they've figured out the regional sort of income and they've put the taxes above it. And then when people go, hey, I don't have the money to pay these taxes. Well, then it's like, oh yeah, what you doing? You can't pay the taxes there. Then that's my house. Then you forfeit your house, and that's what's going on in Italy right now. So you had these people sitting in Brussels, creating a market crisis, and you had Hillary Clinton and Obama over there bombing Libya and taking out Gaddafi, ensuring that the market crisis accelerates. Gaddafi, for we love him or we hate him or whatever, he had a funny hat on or whatever, this guy was there and he was stopping the market crisis. He was full gung-ho. And then, in comes Obama and he goes, I don't like your hat. I don't like the fact that you shag some Hollywood celebrities sometime, and I didn't have to because I had to hang out with Michelle over here. So I'm jealous of you, so I'm going to bomb you. And so he did. He bombed him. And remember, Hillary was there. We came, we saw, we died, Gaddafi's gone. And then all of a sudden, boom, man, boom. Suddenly the whole market crisis just exploded out of nowhere. But now the economy is crashing, and people are starting to ask, they're starting to say, hey, is that a giant conspiracy that as they were taking the houses and the mansions and the luxury and the wine and the artwork, and as the government was stealing all the wealth off the people because they didn't get out? I mean, these poor people, they've lived there for 600 years. They've had the same house for 600 years. They've been invested in this beautiful artwork on their wall for 600 years. And here the government comes in and says, oh, by the way, we've got a sovereign bond crisis. We're going to take your house because you can't pay your taxes. Hang on, give me a sec. I'll sell this artwork to this massive booming art industry that's overinflated. By the way, if anyone out there wants to buy art, hang on just for a few more years. That art industry is going to crash to the rock bottom, and you're going to be able to scoop yourself some art. Same with all these housing bubbles that are going on. Just hang on to your cash. This is what Debt Nation's all about. Imagine a world without debt. If you can get yourself personally, if you can use these low interest rates and the coming low interest rate crisis, which is going to accelerate. So because in Australia they're talking about 1%. They could go lower, but in some countries you're talking zero or negative. So you put your money in the bank and they take it. You're not getting anything back. And if you're talking about a rate of lower than inflation, you put your money in your bank and they take it again because you're not going to make any on inflation. So where does everyone have to put their money? They have to put it in the markets, right? They have to put it into bonds. They have to put it into stocks, which is what these people in Italy have done, which is why they can't pay their taxes because everything... Yeah. Anyway, so they're taking all the stuff. And so is this market crisis a way for Europeans to unite against a common foe? Hey, I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying that the European crazies, have they thought about this and have they been like, all right? Because I don't think that's the actual thing. I mean, I'm just hearing that on the wire. People are saying, well, they're trying to look for an excuse of why they would do this to them. I mean, there's the economic argument that bring them all in and use them as an economic activity and woohoo and everything will be great because we're all the same. All the people are the same. There's no such thing as race. It's just all the same. Everyone's the same. We all speak the same language anyway. We all have the same cultural, customs anyway. Over here, I'm a Catholic and you do voodoo in your spare time. But, we're the same. We're the same. Everybody's the same. Everything's the same. No, this is a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of leftist Marxist baloney that's been infiltrated into the highest echelons of the European Commission and other places. And I wonder if maybe now they're going to turn around and they're going to say, like these hard right-wingers or Le Pen's or whatever. Not that she's a right-winger. I love Le Pen. I've written a lot about Le Pen. Nobody out there going, oh, he's not I'm a fan of Le Pen. Who runs Europe now? Who runs? Oh, I'll go into that in just one sec. Just hang with me one sec. So, is it a conspiracy that they've brought all these people in, all these Arabs and Turks and Muslims and blacks from North Africa and South Africa and I don't know where they're coming from. They're just coming from everywhere. They're coming from Pakistan. I mean, Rotherham or whatever. They're the rape capital of England or whatever. I mean, these people, they're coming in from everywhere. But is it because the government is suddenly going to go, actually, we're not so nice anymore. We're going to unite the people against these people. And everyone goes, yeah, finally, after they've taken all my wealth. after they've stole it through inflating it away, through devaluing the currency, through all these bank bailouts, through all these... remember Cyprus? So what they did in Australia here, we were just talking about the bloody carbon tax under this Julia Gillard character. And remember in Cyprus, how they took people's money out of their bank account? Do you remember that? Do you guys remember that? These people, these crazy nutters, these bankers, they went to Cyprus and they said, hey, we need a bailout. So we're going to do a bail-in. So all these pensioners, people, hard-working people, they get up at 5 a.m., they go off to do things in Cyprus, do retail, scrub the decks of whatever they're doing, building roads and bridges, and I don't know what they're doing in Cyprus, but they're doing stuff, and they're making Cyprus great for Cyprus. And then suddenly these bankers come down with their big, fat pot bellies, and they're, oh, well, you know what, dear Cyprus people? I'm going to take your money now, because you didn't work hard for that money. You're an idiot. You should have just been like me and got on the other side of the interest rate apartheid wall. And they just took all their money. And they said, thanks, Cyprus. That was crazy. I mean, that was crazy. And then the whole European Union was like, everybody in it was like, wait, is this what we signed up to? That you could just come into Germany and just take everyone's deposit accounts? Can you come into Romania and come in and just take everyone's deposit accounts? Come up to Finland and take everyone's deposit accounts? Go into, I don't know, France, Spain, Italy, everywhere? And that's what's happening. That's what's happening, people. This is happening to the people in Italy. They just, instead of taking their deposit accounts, because that would be a little bit too, they're like, oh, you know what? We better not take the deposit accounts because the people in Cyprus got really upset. Even though there's only a tiny population there, everybody noticed that. Let's just take the houses and the mansions and the old farms instead. You know, so you got to get out of Italy. If you're in Italy, it's going back to being run by the mafia. I mean, this Italy place is an absolute basket case. The banks are going down. Deutsche Bank is going down, and that'll trigger everything, and everything else will go down. But look, if you're in Italy, my recommendation would be get the hell out of there. Get all your things into gold, all your assets into gold and silver or into Bitcoin, and transfer your wealth out of there and get the hell out, because those people are coming for you. Of course, the government is slowly getting better, Mr. Salvini and others, but you know, these left-wing governments that have run out of other people's money, these socialist, Keynesian type people who are economically degenerate, you know, taking people's money and people's wealth, and it's disgusting, and I'm disgusted by it, and I'm appalled. How else do I say that? I'm appalled at these people. Anyway, so we've got this huge problem in Italy, and we've got this huge migrant crisis problem, and we've got the huge Turkey problem. Well, Turkey is a member of NATO. Yes, that's true, and they're balancing regional power against Iran and against Syria and against Iraq and against Georgia, because remember the Baltics and all that sort of stuff is very important to Russia. So Turkey is a NATO ally, but you know, I don't know how much longer they'll be a NATO ally. Erdogan and Trump don't get on very well. You know, Erdogan wants to make Turkey great again. Trump said ban more Muslims. I mean, Erdogan insulted the hell out of every single Australian, which doesn't have an impact on the geopolitical thing. But remember, he said something about everyone's going to go back in coffins from Australia, you know, on Gallipoli Day, like these forefathers did, like our grandfathers did. I mean, this guy's a nutter. So no, it's Turkey's not going to save him either, because the Turkish government was trying desperately to get into the European Union. It was trying for a long time, and thank God it didn't. It did get economically sort of integrated, which is a bit of a problem for Europe, but hopefully its banking system can absorb a bit of the crash. So, look, there's problems. They stem from financial elites who are hell-bent on taking your money any way they can. This is the jihadism of the West. This is the jihadism. It's jihadi terrorist, financial terrorists who are running around and they're trying to take your money. And the crash that is coming in stocks and in bonds, because the central banks have been buying up all the corporate bonds, this is going to be horrible for the average person, because they're not going to know what's happened, because there is no interest rates. There's nowhere left to go. There's nowhere left to go for the average person. If you have a lot of debt, I would recommend, not financial advice or anything, but just get out of that debt now. I mean, we want to move away from the sort of corrupt debt system. We want to go back to a system of the US dollar being tethered to the gold standard, to gold. Okay, we want a gold ratio, some sort of ratio. It doesn't matter what the ratio is, but we want that because we want to start fixing some of these problems. A lot of these geopolitical problems are pushed on us by central banks printing money ad infinitum, because they have no sort of clear tether. You know what I mean? I mean, this is the big problems, and this is why you end up with all these housing bubbles, and it's why you end up with China having massive ghost cities everywhere, where you've got buildings that are empty, and there's streets and streets and streets of them, and they're empty, and you turn around and there's rotting, and they're building new ones just behind you. I mean, this is a mega bubble of epic proportions, and it's because they're printing money and they're trying to inflate an economy that's dead. They're sitting there trying to wake up for Frankenstein, but he's dead. I mean, he's not going to walk around anymore because he's dead, and that's the big problem. And Australia's going to get hit massively by something like that, because we rely on our exports. What do we export? We export minerals, we export a bit of education, we export some agricultural products, but that's all gone now. Thank you, government. Thanks for stuffing up the Murray-Darling. Okay? The people on the ground, the real citizens, we didn't vote for this. What we voted for was an economically vibrant, beautiful, smashing Murray-Darling. We wanted the Murray-Darling to be the food bowl of the world, okay? And what did we get? We got a wreck. We got a car wreck. They give us some sort of slime infested, dead fish everywhere. This thing that this Topher Field guy is going on about with this scam with the DEA and all this sort of stuff, or whatever it is. I mean, this Murray-Darling thing is an absolute train wreck. It's a train wreck. And I'm not going to sit here and defend Liberal or Labor, because I'm not here. I don't play that game. I don't play that game, all right? You can push me and say, oh, you're being anti-patriotic because you're attacking Liberals. No. Look, I used to be a part of the Liberal Party a long time ago. But I'm going to call them out. I'm going to call out Labor. I'm going to call out anywhere I see a problem, because I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, I'm going to play party politics. I'm not a part of any. I'm technically a member of a party, okay? But I'm not going to play party politics, because I'm going to sit here and tell the truth of what I think is the truth. I don't really like that word anymore, because it's truth is sort of. It's an absolute thing, but everybody's saying they have the truth, and that's what I find is the problem, because what they're saying that is the truth is their own subjective opinion. You know what I mean? So you might actually have the truth, and you're saying, I actually have the truth, and then someone else is saying, oh, they have the truth, and it's probably their opinion on something. So I'm not really like that, but I don't have any stake in the Liberal Party. I don't have any stake in the Labor Party. I don't have any stake in Katter's Australia Party. I don't have any stake with the Fraser Anning guys, even though I pushed really hard for those guys, because I thought they were really good. And just as a mechanism to get Australia thinking. Okay, why did I mean, I wrote tons of articles. I interviewed Fraser Anning. I went on and on and on and on and on about Fraser Anning. And I the reason is, and a lot of the people who care about the Z, okay, and you all know what the Z is. The Z is the word, and I can't use the word, but the Z. Yeah, he supports the Z, but he also supported a lot of things that wasn't the Z. And so the Z for me portion, I had to ignore it. I had to ignore it on the broader aspect that it changed the debate in Parliament. It changed people's perception about what was going on. I mean, this guy went from getting 6 votes accidentally, or 18 votes accidentally, or whatever it was, and then boom, he's got 40,000 votes in a party. I mean, people say, oh, he didn't do very well. He only got 40k votes, and he did fantastic. I mean, this guy blasted out of nowhere. I mean, if he didn't accidentally get elected, this guy wouldn't have, not accidentally get elected. He's put his name out there, and obviously whatever he did before didn't work, or it did work, or whatever. But it's not an accident that he put his name in there. I'm not trying to be mean to him in that way. Please, Fraser, if you're listening, I know he tunes into some of these things. So if you're listening, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I don't mean that in a way that isn't respectful. What I mean is, what you did was something incredible, where you got the whole country thinking in a dynamic, more right-wing, old-fashioned sort of sensible. You bought sensible back. I mean, you bought sensible back. I mean, that's what you did, and that's why I pushed, even though the Z and I hit hard. Oh, it's the Z. No, I had to put that aside. I had to get rid of that, because if you go to Canada, there's the Z. If you go to the Liberals, there's the Z. If you go to Labor, there's the Z. If you go everywhere, there's the Z. Z, right? So. And hopefully I'm not putting you to sleep with the Z. It's not the point. It's the Z. Forcing people to do, and forcing new opinion out of what was very boring rhetoric coming out of Canberra. I mean, everyone was so bored at this election? I mean, wasn't it boring? I mean, from the two majors, from the Coles and Woolies. I mean, that's what I call them. I don't call them Labor and Liberal. I call them the Coles and Woolies. You go, oh, yeah, I can buy this, and it's almost the same price, and they're all relatively the same, and everything's sort of the same. Why is everything the same in a representative democracy? Look, we live in a representative democracy, people. There's supposed to be difference and variety between these things. And the two parties were saying, oh no, we're pretty much the same. And I will admit, on climate change, there was massive difference. I mean, Labor was radical. I mean, those guys were nuts. They're talking on their lower levels, the Stephen Jollies, the bloody these socialists up here in Victoria. I'm going to get out. I'm going to come with you where you people are in the real world. Because this place is crazy. But the Stephen Jollies and the Sarah Hanson Youngs and I don't know. There's all these Bob Brown and all these weirdo, politician greenie people. I mean, these people are, these people drive me nuts. But anyway, and they were just talking, like the lower levels were talking about 100,000,000% renewable energy targets. These guys were going crazy because they thought they were going to win. And they thought they could be a little jab in the side of Labor. And they were going nuts. And remember the epic... Oh, we're gonna shut Andrew Bolt down, and we're gonna shut the Sky News down, and all that sort of stuff. These people were going crazy. These people, like, a lot of people don't understand how Marxist these people really are. They're full-on Marxists. They're full-on crazy authoritarian weirdos. These people were dropped on their head when they were born, or something. I don't know, or they were mistreated in some way, or something happened to them, because these guys are nuts. These guys don't have 2 functioning brain cells. I mean, I don't know what's up with these people. These people need to, what they need to do is they need to go to a funny farm, and they need to sit there on the funny farm with all their other funny farm friends and have a beautiful little experience of life, okay, on a funny farm with all the other funny farm people. And they can talk about 100 million, gazillion, billion, trillion, renewable energy targets and all that sort of stuff. You want to know the real renewable energy targets? You want to know the real stuff? This is the real stuff, okay? What generates the energy in this universe, as far as we know, that would be helpful for humans and would be really cheap. It's the sun. Okay, that's a really simple answer. Or the sun influences the wind, the sun influences the waves, the sun influences the climate. I mean, all climate people, the sun is the big one, right? So what we should be doing, instead of worrying about 100 million, billion, trillion renewable energy targets from these Stephen Jolly, communist, Marxist weirdo, Sarah Hanson Young, dropped on their head type people, we should, instead of worrying about this, what we need to do is we need to get on board with all these space technology innovators, these low-cost space lifters. We need to get energy, like solar power, power infrastructure across space, in outer space. Okay? We're talking huge, big, mega structures of solar power, and then we beam that down with microwave energy. We have infinite energy forever. And we could sell it to other countries. Okay? We could sell it to other countries. I mean, that would be great. I'm all for that. It's a mega project. It will unite the country. It's difficult to do. It's hard to do. And, all that sort of stuff. It's hard to do, but it's doable. We can do it now with the low cost, Elon Musk type Origin, Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos. Remember that Blue Origin thing? The cost of lifting products into space is coming down. And what we should do as a national project is we should build a monolith, a huge mega project, and we should beam all that energy, that free energy, back down to Earth. And that's your renewable energy right there. I mean, that's the real deal. As I said, if you want to go back to the start of this broadcast, I already talked about coal plants and how I'm all on board with that, and I'm all on board with nuclear energy down here on Earth and everything like that. And I'm totally not opposed to any of that, and I think go gung ho, let's do it. But that's the real strategic key, because if there was an invasion, or if there was climate disaster, or if some cyber hack or hit it or something like that, the mega project in space, at least that could be sort of unharmed from some of that sort of stuff. Maybe not the cyber, which is why I sort of started it. I've got low disk space, so but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to push on. So if anyone in the comments has anything, send a super chat, and I will do the read it out or whatever. I haven't been following the comments. I've been rambling for a long time about a lot of different things, and I would like to now engage with the audience a little bit. So if you've got a super chat from me, just send me $1. I mean, it's so I know it sounds, everyone's like nowadays asking for $1 or whatever, but it adds up because it helps us to produce the content that you love. It helps us to keep the studio running, because everything has costs and all that sort of stuff. So if you, I don't know how many people watching either. Oh, lots of people. So that's good. But in saying that, if you don't want to send that, that's fine, and I'll keep talking about what we were talking about, and we'll go on. So what do we think about? What do we think about a lot of this stuff? I'm just going to quickly go through and have a quick look at the comments, because I haven't been reading any of them. Lots of cool people here. I've seen some of these people. So some of these people in these comments will have seen my broadcasts. And if you've seen those broadcasts, you'll know what I mean. So if you've seen those broadcasts, write that in the comments below, because they were quite fun, weren't they? I mean, they're not there anymore, and that was the whole point of them. That was me. That wasn't Tim, or that wasn't anybody else. So that's really good. But anyway, look, we'll keep going. If no one has anything to say, that is absolutely fine. We'll go and have a look at some different prices for you as well. So, economic crash. Why do I think that there's an economic crash coming? There's an economic crash coming because the financial elites have ordered it. They've got it on the books. They've got it already planned. It's been planned for a long time, and they've been very greedy for a long time, and they want to have a crash so that they can take more wealth from the middle class. They want to take more wealth from the middle class. They want to turn everybody into meth head, heroin addict, drug addict, codeine addict. And if they can do it even better, they want everyone addicted to Johnson and Johnson and Pfizer pills. I mean, that's the end game, right? This is the end game of why the financial elites are so intent on having this coming crash. And what will this coming crash look like? Well, stocks will be irrelevant to portfolios. That's what will happen. So all these people, if you know anything about money, you have a portfolio, right? You have a bunch of different assets. You have a bunch of different monetary portfolios. You have stocks. You have bonds. You have equities. You have ETFs. You have a whole bunch of stuff in your portfolio, and stocks will no longer be in that portfolio. That's just what's going to happen, because stocks are going to go to zero. I mean, stocks, they're going to fall a lot, because right now they're being bumped up by printing cheap money. They're being bumped up by buying bonds. They're being pumped up by derivatives fraud. They're being pumped up by importing massive amounts of Main Street economy labor, which doesn't help the fundamentals of the economy at all, because it's all just superficial stuff. Lots of people want me to talk about 5G. I've just noticed that. You wanted me to talk about 5G. Okay, so that's the financial elites have already planned it. That's what's going to happen. 5G. Look, I'm going to admit I'm no expert on 5G. I have talked to some people about 5G, and if you want, I'll try and get some experts on. I know a lot of technology people. I know a lot of people in the industry, and I know what a lot of the audience wants me to say on 5G. And what 5G is, and what people want me to say on 5G is the mark of the beast. It's the new world order coming for you. That's what people want me to say. It's going to activate all the chips in our brain, and we're all going to be servile, lobotomized zombie drone consumer drones. That's what the people want me to say. But I actually don't know enough about 5G to say all that. If I find out that that's the truth, I'll definitely say all that stuff. That the government is planning a conspiracy to take over your brain and fry it with a 5G network. Because I'm not sure how much. Because I'm not sure how much of it's hype, how much of it's conspiracy, how much of it is people getting scared of new technologies, how much of it, because we've been through this before. I mean, at least 4 times, right? We went through the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4, or whatever, I don't know. But I just know we're up to 4 now, and we're heading into 5. And I know that there's a lot of health risk warnings out there on the capacitors and the distribution boxes and all that sort of stuff. And that's okay. I mean, but there's a lot of health warnings on a lot of that sort of stuff. I mean, if you go underneath some of your buildings where you guys work, it says don't enter without because there's a thing, or keep clear because there's electronics in here and stuff. So, that's really interesting. 5G, I don't know. I do know that there's directed energy technology. There's directed energy weapons. These are pretty old. Well, not old technology, but they've been around for a while. I mean, the most primitive sort of ones on public display, where they use them against protesters. They sort of beam these things out, and the protesters all scatter. they've been around for a while now, and they've used them in all sorts of countries. They've used them primarily in African countries. I remember reading about the Democratic Republic of Congo using a lot of these directed energy weapons, Angola, Zambia, and Niger as well. How did they get them all? I think France delivered them. So I'm not sure. But 5G, I don't have enough information. I'll try and get somebody on the show, and if you guys know people, direct them to me. And if we've got an expert on 5G, because I've talked to some guy. He was on. I went to a conference, and this guy was on the Australian version of the entrepreneur show. You know, Shark Tank, right? And he's a billionaire or a multi-gazillionaire or whatever, but and he's a technology guy. And I said to him, you know, what about 5G? Oh, I didn't say this actually. Someone else, we were in a group, and someone else said to him, hey, what about 5G? Do you trust it? And this guy said, and this is his answer. This isn't my answer, but this is what he said. He said, well, we've been doing this experiment on ourselves for a long time. You know, everyone's radiating themselves all the time with these little mobile phones and the waves going through the air and the computers and everything. We've been doing this all for a long time. So he said he didn't see any problem with it. But he didn't see a problem with a lot of stuff. So I'm not sure. The 5G thing, I can't confirm or deny. I can't tell you guys what you want to hear, because that would be false news. That would be fake news. That would be me sensationalizing something I don't know very much about. Someone down here said it's military grade microwave. If it is, send me the article. Send me the link. I can look that up. I can read it. I'm not going to tell you something I don't know. But I do know that directed energy weapons are a big thing. I know that they're going to get directed laser energy weapons installed on ships soon to shoot down missiles and fast-moving targets and stuff like that. So lasers are definitely a thing. Directed energy weapons are definitely a thing. Oh, Ivan, he said something. He said, hey, mate, came in late. Did you talk about our economy's dependence on China buying up all our finite natural resources? No, I didn't specifically go on about that. We've been going on about China for, I don't know, a long time. But that's fine. So, hey, mate, so I'll definitely talk about that. So, our economy, I'll just quickly look this up. I'm pretty sure the Australian economy export ratio, like, it's the mining is the third biggest, I think, export. Let me just have a quick look up this for Mr. Ivan Kolev. Australian exports list something. Let's have a look. Okay, so iron ore. Okay, so iron ore and concentrates are at first at 53 billion. Coal is second at 42 billion. Tourism satellite account is 34 billion, and education is at 22 billion. So that's our thing. So iron ore, most of that definitely goes to China, and concentrates. Most of that definitely goes to China. I know the coal definitely goes to China, although we have been diversifying some of that coal with India. India's been a great partner. They've been buying a lot of the. But the problem with China is that they have so many of their own mines. They have so many of their own. I mean, China's a really big coal exporter. But yes, so. To relate to Mr. Ivan's thing, our economy is absolutely dependent on it. And what is it dependent on? It's dependent on China buying our coal and our iron ore to build and fuel their construction industry, their steel manufacturing, and other things, right? And we all cheered when Donald Trump said, we don't want Chinese cheap steel because, Chinese cheap steel is not as good a grade as American steel. But that hurts us because we're an exporter to China and we want to sell as much stuff we can. So you know, I don't know if we're supposed to be cheering because we would like to sell more, but it's kind of good in a way because it does wean us off this free money that sort of flows with the China or Australia trade. Remember this when you're thinking about trade. We give them rocks. They give us products. You know what I mean? We literally pull rocks out of the ground called iron ore and coal, and we get back in return Huawei phones, spy phones. No, but we get back in return real products. So that's a good part about our trade. The dependence is not good. The dependence is bad because the saying goes in the economic world, if America coughs, sneezes, the rest of the world gets the flu. Because America pushed some of that burden onto China, and China is now going through a bubble phase, which it might not be able to sustain, and then our economy is so intricately linked with China. If China sneezes, we get the flu. Okay? And I'll tell you what do you guys think? Do you guys want an economic problems, or are we happy with how it is? Because one of the reasons that we're losing our cultural spirit and we're losing our national spirit is because we are just getting so sort of fat and happy, right? We're getting so sort of comfortable, you know, living off the goodness of trade, that we're getting lazy. And the laziness has wiped out a lot of the national spirit because, you know, every day you wake up and everything's going better. And, well, not better, but in terms of the middle class, you know, they're thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to have a stable sort of existence. I don't need to worry about the country or appreciate the country that I'm actually in. And that's bad for the native population, the white native population. But that's really bad because then they don't even see that the other things that this country offers. I mean, this country offers so much. I mean, we have lakes and rivers and beautiful gum trees, and we have the Great Barrier Reef, and we have Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne, and you know, I mean, aesthetically, this country is absolutely charming. I mean, it's great. It's got so many problems, and I don't want to be such a downer, going, oh, you know, talking about all the poverty, how it's rife with poverty, and all the drug addicts and the heroin addicts and the ice epidemic. I don't want to talk about all that. I mean, we can talk about that, and we have to face these problems, and this is what the left never does. Okay, the left never goes, actually, how do we fix these issues? How do we get these issues back onto the table so that we can fix the homeless crisis, that we can fix the ice epidemic, that we can fix the heroin crisis, that we can fix the nationalism crisis. There's a crisis in nationalism. No one cares about their country anymore. No one cares about anything anymore that isn't to do with sport and soccer and football and state of origin and all these sorts of things. I mean, nobody cares. Okay, we have to bring back the caring aspect of it. It's okay to be around for ways to diversify our economy, and we look around for other partners, the European Union, and we'll always rely on them forever and ever and ever, and we'll never do anything. We don't want our old empire back. We don't want to do anything in the world. We don't want to communicate with the Commonwealth. We don't want to talk to America. We'll just rely on France and Germany and Poland and Romania and Italy and Czechoslovakia and Bulgaria, all for everything we need, and Estonia and Finland and Sweden. I mean, that's what they're thinking, right? But the people said, all right, we'll pray, and we're going to put Brexit in the box. We're going to do it. It's going to be tough. The UK, when Brexit actually goes through, and a swift Brexit, this is some real stuff, and I've always known this. The elites know this. Everybody knows this, but nobody talks about it because the UK, as hard as it is to say, is now a satrap. It's a vassal state of the United States. That's all it is. And because of the wars in Iraq, because of the wars in Iran, because of, well, not Iran, but in Syria and other things, when you see the UK going out onto the world stage, everyone goes, wow, the British Empire is still alive and it's still kicking. Forget about all that Hong Kong stuff in the 1990s. Forget about all late 1980s or whatever it was. Forget about all that Hong Kong stuff. Look, the UK is doing stuff in Iraq. It's doing stuff in Syria. That means it's still okay. That means the empire is still here and we're all still kicking and everything's still happening. That's not really what's happening. They were forced into that stuff. It's not in their interest. Tony Blair knew that it wasn't in their interest. As if going into bloody Iraq with the United States is somehow in their interest. Okay, it's a load of baloney. Okay, so the UK and Australia are heading on the same trajectory. The UK is Brexiting, which means it's going to fall into once the City of London is gone, once this buildings behind me are disappeared and all the fraud is gone, the government will struggle for money and will have to focus on building up its people again. Why? Because it's people, the real people are supposed to be the bedrock of a nation state. Okay? It's not these buildings behind me. These buildings behind me are buildings. They don't mean anything. They don't have a heart. They don't have a soul. They're glass. They're concrete. They're bloody, they're a fiction. It's a fiction. And these people in Parliament have thrown democracy away to protect these buildings, to protect Mark Carney and his friends, to protect the big banking elites in these buildings. And everyone's saying, no, that's not England, it's not the real economy. And that's the same thing with Australia. That's what we have to do. We have to sort of China exit, if you know what I mean. A lot of people go on about United Nations exit. And I'm a bit wishy on this one. And you're all going to attack me in the comments now and say, oh, what a traitor. How can you not be for United Nations exit? I'll tell you why. It's because for a population of 25 million on the end of the world where nobody's even heard of Australia. I mean, when you talk to anyone overseas, Australia's the last country they think of apart from New Zealand. I mean, I'm being serious. I mean, Australia is a very underwhelming sort of country that's known for kangaroos, beaches, the Sydney Opera House, and that's about it, right? And probably that Crocodile Dundee guy who did a great job in advertising the whole place. So, and Steve Irwin, right? And we got the Vegemite and all that, which got sold off. Oh my God, we won't go on about that. But look, Australia, it's had a very privileged position in the United Nations for a long time, because of its wealth and because of its democratic leanings and its ability to do everything the United Nations has ever said. Because what is Australia's strategic sort of geopolitical grand strategy? Well, it's simple. It's please the United States, because the United States has all the boats and the aircraft carriers and all the planes and everything we need in order to protect ourselves, in order to survive, in order to become a nation that can defend itself by outsourcing its security issues. So as long as the United States is doing that, as long as the United States is protecting us because we're bowing over to them, then the relationship works. And the United States built the United Nations, and the United States uses the United Nations, and the United States wants us to be in the United Nations in order to continue that relationship. So for me, it's a bit of a sort of a funny one, because it's like, I want to please the United Nations in order to get all that security contracts and all the security outsourced stuff. I think that's a really good idea. But I don't want to see a country that only sort of bows over to these interests. I'm just trying to fix the scrolling bar thing. I noticed that it's not working for you over there. I lost my train of thought. Oh, it's back. Hopefully that's back. So the grand geopolitical strategy of Australia is to get all the boats and to keep all the boats, flowing from the United States. Oh, I think I lost my little latest news thing. That's okay. Go to the unshackled.net if you want to see that. I think you've seen that already. And so it's kind of hard to say, let's get out of the United Nations. I know it's very popular, but if we start getting mistreated really badly, I'll be all over it. I'll move fully over onto that bandwagon. I've written a lot about it. They treat us very poorly. They call us a bunch of racists. They call us they don't let us exercise our sovereign right in the Oceania region. They do a lot of bad things, and I hate them. But the United States likes them. The United States wants them. So it's very hard to do, and that's where the Turnbull people and all these others, sort of the globalists, sort of have all these problems, because it's the United Nations. Even though that America says, because they want the United Nations to work for them as a mechanism for them, it's an arm of the United States. That's what it is. The United Nations is just an arm it's a diplomatic arm of the United States. So although they complain about it in a way that's they're not working for us anymore, and that they need to achieve something better. They need to work for the United States. And that's what Trump is trying to do. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's going on about. He's talking about getting the United Nations to work for the United States, not for Israel, not for some other foreign country, but the United States. And it's a good forum, international forum of everybody talking, especially the Security Council. Forget about the human rights jargon with Saudi Arabia. You remember all that, how they abuse women and they put them on as all that whole story. I mean, that's stupid stuff, right? That's legitimately stupid. I mean, it's funny, but it's stupid. And I don't know how else you can't laugh. You have to laugh at it, right? You have to. But what are we going to do? I mean, if we leave, we don't get a say anymore, and that's kind of bad. We can't start our own one. It's like a rock and a hard place. It's like a bunch of bullies. It's like being trapped inside a room with a bunch of bullies, and it's like, well, we've got the biggest bully friend in this room, and as long as the biggest bully friend is making us stay in the room, then we'll stay. No, I don't know. But I think the other thing that people are worried about with the United Nations is they're getting out of control. This is the other side, and this is the side that people really worry about the United Nations for, is they're getting out of control. They're going nuts. They want a one-world government. They don't want it to be under a United States agenda. They want it to be under a United Nations agenda. They want radical depopulation. They want radical sexual equality. They want radical environmental equality. They want radical destruction of nation states. Essentially, they don't want nation states. That's the point, right? They don't want any nation states. So and they want this sort of Agenda 21 sort of radical Agenda 30 thing that they're Agenda 30 now. I guess they're bringing out. That everybody's sort of thinking about. And it's scary. People are scared, and people are saying, hey, that's not what I wanted from the United Nations. And I think that's why people are saying more and more, hey, we want out of this. The only problem with getting out is that once you're out, you can't actively say no inside of it. Do you get what I mean like that? And that's kind of why we haven't left, and that's kind of why we're not going to leave, even with all the pressure. There was the battle in Seattle with the IMF and the World Bank and all that sort of stuff, and the UN, and the battle in Seattle. Remember all of that? They were warning us about this. They were saying, this is what's going to happen. These people are power hungry, mad people. They don't want national agenda. They don't want nation states. They want to invade. They want to depopulate the earth and all this sort of stuff. So. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think we should have a voice as a country inside of that institution, even if it's becoming increasingly irrelevant, at least then we can have a voice. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We kind of want to be left alone. We want to be left alone. But I think we can stay there and do nationalism on our own anyway. I think we can ramp up the nationalism, and we can ramp up the agenda, and we can do the things that we need to do to make this country better, even while staying inside the United Nations. It's kind of a difficult ish sort of prospect. All right, everybody, listen. I am going to head for the night. I'm gonna say that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you will catch me again. I'm going to do these things more often. I'm finally built my way up to being able to produce this for you more often. We only touched on a few topics. So there's a lot more to come, and I really enjoyed your company. I really think that you're an incredibly smart audience. I think we need to gather our numbers, gather our strength, and talk about these issues more, and have a firm debate. I mean, I'm not completely, I'm not a closed-minded person. I'm open to different opinions and ideas. I'm open to different sorts of things. I'm not afraid to say a lot of things, except with the Z. And we can talk about all the issues that are affecting our nations, across the West. I'm an Australian, so I have an Australian perspective on this. I know there's not a lot of Aussie YouTubers and stuff, and for those few that are out there, Tim Williams obviously I know very well. He's doing a fantastic job there. TU Waves. Dusty Bogan is another one. He's a very good, solid character. I really enjoy watching the Dusty Bogan. He's a very funny guy. He's just so relaxed and so chilled. I'm not relaxed or chilled like him, but he's a funny guy. So I recommend you will check out that channel. You probably already know about him. There's Dia Beltran. Dia Beltran is an interesting girl. She's traditional. She's sort of a traditional religious sort of type. She doesn't live very traditionally, or but she advocates the policies and all that sort of stuff. She's also probably a Mossad agent because of what she spouts. But maybe she's not. But otherwise, it would be a very good cover. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Oh, and there's the regulars as well. But so thank you everybody, and we'll come back. I'll get some graphics and stuff. I'm working with James Fox Higgins on some graphics and stuff for this show, and I'll try and get this thing a little bit better for you, so it doesn't just show the same breaking news. But this is just the breaking news off the unshackled.net, where you can find us if you like the unshackled.net. We built that up. There's a lot of interesting articles on there, and it's a huge it's a huge archive of information now, pretty much, of radical leftism and all the craziness that goes on with gender fluidity and soft Marxism and all these crazy socialist communists who are running around in our country. I mean, we want to get rid of these people, right? We want to throw these people out of our country. But first we have to know what their agenda is, who they are, where they are, all this sort of stuff. We have to name and shame and blame, and eventually we will kick these people out. But we can't do that now because it's illegal. And we'll change that eventually, but until then, let them run around and let them and name them and shame them and put them on the unshackled.net. So, if you like it, unshackled.net, highly recommend. Go over there, have a read, have a browse. Smoke some joints, have a read. No, I'm just kidding, don't smoke joints. But look, anyway, thank you everybody, and thanks again for tuning into Debt Nation. Debt Nation is basically a finance show. It's basically economics, and finance, and I like geopolitics, so we work from there, and then we go up from there. So we start at finance and economics, and personal finance is where I really want to go with you people, because I want to talk about personal finance, because I want to see you guys get wealthy off of the transition, but also I think that if you guys get wealthy, then I'll get wealthy, and we can all get wealthy together. So even if this remains a small community, and you guys get rich, we can all get wealthy together, and then use that wealth collectively to fight back against the parasitical classes that are amassing. Because I'm looking everywhere, and I'm starting to see more and more and more enemies, and less friends like you. So thank you very much. So yeah, personal finance is where we're heading on the show. We'll do call-ins. I'm going to set up a phone so we can do call-ins, and we can talk about our stories and exchange ideas of how to make money, because everybody wants to make money, and hopefully, as we showed you earlier, we can keep cash in our hands. Okay, even if it means having the weird Freemason, triangle weird currency that comes out of the United States, because they were founded pretty much by Freemasons, but that's okay. I mean, Freemasons. But all right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you again on the next show, whenever that is. I've got a bunch of cool sort of people lined up to talk about high technology people. Isaac Arthur is coming on. Gennady Stevorov, the second. He's a Russian American. He's the leader of the Transhumanist Party. He's amazing, amazingly smart, doing a lot of amazing hard work down there, up there in the United States. Isaac Arthur is a huge YouTuber. Does massive amounts of science and tech, and big thinking and all that sort of stuff. Because I want you guys to think. I want to think. I'm sick of all these little hosts of these little YouTube shows who are running around, and they feed you stuff, and they cut and they paste and they edit it all, and they preach, they tell people what to think. I'm over it. We should all be over it. We want our own brains, and we want to think. And I have to do some research for you on the 5G stuff. So thank you everybody for that. Also have a bunch of other people lined up who will be really, really cool to talk to. Completely different from anything you've seen on this channel before. So thank you everybody, and thanks for tuning into Debt Nation. And I'll have to learn to look at the camera better, because right now I'm just getting used to this. This is just the first show, but look, we'll get better.